Judge Caprio leaned back slightly, his eyes never leaving Sophia. Miss Huntington, he said slowly, let me be perfectly clear. The law does not bend for wealth. It does not bend for donations. It does not bend because someone thinks they can buy their way out of responsibility. You may have money, you may have influence, but here, in my courtroom, none of that matters. Sophia's smirk faltered slightly. I mean, it's just a traffic ticket, though. I wasn't even going that fast. You were traveling 87 miles per hour in a 35-mile-per-hour residential zone, Judge Caprio said, his voice calm but deadly precise. 2.5 times the legal limit. There are 3 schools in that neighborhood, Miss Huntington. You could have killed children, pedestrians, or other drivers. That is not nothing. That is a serious threat to public safety. And then you compounded it by failing to appear in court, showing utter disregard for the law. You didn't even attempt to inform the court that you were unavailable. Sophia rolled her eyes again, a gesture that made the courtroom collectively gasp. It's traffic court. It's not like I robbed a bank. Do you understand the difference between a legal obligation and your personal convenience? Judge Caprio asked, leaning forward. Because clearly, you do not. When a court issues an order, it is mandatory. You do not get to decide which laws apply to you based on your schedule, your travel plans, or your mother's net worth. But my mom, Sophia began. No, Miss Huntington, Judge Caprio interrupted, raising a single finger for emphasis. Your mother's wealth, her position, her donations, none of it gives you immunity. The law does not work that way. The law is not negotiable. Respect is not negotiable. Your attitude is not negotiable. Sophia looked around the courtroom, stunned by the calm fury in the judge's voice. The gallery was silent, hanging on every word. Even Gerald Stevenson, her own attorney, seemed frozen, realizing that years of experience could not override this moment. Judge Caprio's voice grew firmer. You endangered lives, showed no remorse, failed to appear, and attempted to leverage your family's influence to circumvent justice. That is a series of serious offenses, Miss Huntington. And you are about to learn why arrogance has consequences that no amount of money can erase. Sophia swallowed, her fingers tightening around her designer phone. For the first time, she seemed unsure, as though she were suddenly aware that in this courtroom, privilege held no sway. Before I announce your sentence, Judge Caprio continued, I want you to understand something. This is not about punishment for the sake of punishment. This is about accountability. You have responsibilities. You have obligations to society. And when you fail to meet them, when you act with blatant disregard for others, the consequences are real, immediate, and inescapable. Money cannot buy your way out. Status cannot shield you. The law is equal for all, Miss Huntington. Sophia's usual smug expression had disappeared entirely. The room seemed to shrink around her. She was no longer in a boutique, no longer in a world where her mother's wealth could fix everything. She was facing the undeniable reality that actions have consequences, and Judge Caprio was about to enforce them. Sophia's smirk faltered slightly as Judge Caprio continued. You will also complete 300 hours of community service at Providence Emergency Medical Services, he said, his voice measured but firm. There, you will learn what it means to face the consequences of reckless decisions. You will assist with ambulance dispatch coordination, observe emergency responses, and see firsthand the human cost of actions like yours, people injured, families terrified, lives disrupted. This will not be a mere formality. You will report on time, follow all instructions, and complete every hour under supervision. Any failure to comply will bring additional consequences, up to and including possible incarceration. You are not above the law, Miss Huntington. Not here, not anywhere. Sophia's eyes widened, disbelief flashing across her face. Wait. I have to work with ambulances? Like, people who are hurt, she asked, her voice betraying the first hint of apprehension she had shown in the courtroom. Yes, Judge Caprio said, his gaze steady and unyielding. This is not just about punishment, it is about responsibility. It is about understanding that choices have consequences, no matter your wealth, your family name, or your sense of entitlement. You will learn empathy. You will learn humility. You will learn that your actions affect real people, not just your own convenience or comfort. And you will do this honestly, without shortcuts or excuses. Your community service begins on Monday at 7 a.m. You will not be late, and you will not leave until your hours are complete. Sophia's attorney, Gerald Stevenson, whispered urgently at her side, but she ignored him, still trying to process the gravity of what was being said. Judge Caprio continued, leaning forward slightly, his eyes locking on hers. And one more thing, Miss Huntington. Your apology cannot be just words. It must be demonstrated through action. The community service is your way to repair the harm caused by your recklessness, by your arrogance, and by the example you set for others. Every dispatch you take, every ambulance you help coordinate, every frightened person you see will remind you that life is not a privilege to flaunt, it is a responsibility to respect. Wealth does not exempt you from this responsibility. Your mother's influence cannot bend the law, and your own sense of entitlement cannot excuse the choices you have made. The courtroom remained silent, the air thick with tension. Even the bailiff seemed to hold his breath. Sophia glanced around, her phone now completely forgotten, the weight of the ruling settling over her like a heavy cloak. The fines, the 1-year license suspension, the 300 hours of service, they were all very real, all unavoidable, all consequences she could not call off with money, influence, or family connections. For the first time, she realized that the rules applied equally to everyone, even to her. Judge Caprio's gavel struck decisively, punctuating the moment. "This concludes today's proceedings," he said. "Remember, Miss Huntington, justice is not about wealth, power, or privilege. It is about accountability, respect, and the courage to face your actions. Learn from this. Do not make me, or anyone else, see this behavior again. Your time begins Monday morning, and I expect full compliance." Dismissed. Sophia slumped slightly, stunned, as murmurs ran through the gallery. The lesson was unmistakable: arrogance and entitlement might open doors in life, but in Judge Caprio's courtroom, they carried a cost measured not in money, but in accountability, humility, and the hard truth of facing the consequences. For the first time, Sophia understood that wealth did not make her untouchable, and that justice had its own unbending rules she could no longer ignore. Sophia Huntington's casual arrogance vanished the moment Judge Caprio's words sank in. "Miss Huntington," he said calmly but with unshakable authority, "your contempt of court, specifically your attempt to influence me through threats and offers of bribery, is a criminal offense. You are hereby held in direct contempt." The courtroom seemed to freeze, every eye locked on the 19-year-old who had thought her family's wealth made her untouchable. "Jail? You can't send me to jail," Sophia exclaimed, her voice cracking with fear for the first time. The reality of her actions finally began to pierce her carefully constructed bubble of privilege. 2 bailiffs approached, and Sophia instinctively stepped back. "No, get away from me. You don't understand who I am," she shouted, frantic, reaching for her phone. "Ma'am, we know exactly who you are," Bailiff Rodriguez said, calm and firm, gently removing the phone. "Please put your hands behind your back. Don't make this harder than it already is." Sophia's lawyer, Gerald Stevenson, whispered urgently, but she ignored him, still struggling to reconcile fear with entitlement. "You'll get one phone call from the jail," the bailiff added. Sophia's panic intensified. "I want my lawyer. My mom will sue you. She'll have your job. You can't do this." Her protests echoed through the courtroom, but Judge Caprio's voice remained steady, unwavering. "Miss Huntington, your mother's money is precisely the problem," he said, rising slightly, his presence commanding absolute attention. "You spent 19 years believing it made you special, that it made you immune from consequences. It doesn't. In this courtroom, you are just another citizen who broke the law. Citizens face consequences. Wealth cannot and will not protect you here." The bailiffs moved forward. Sophia sobbed openly, mascara streaking her cheeks, her entitled facade completely shattered. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. My mom can help. Please," she cried, her voice breaking. But her pleas could not undo the reality of her actions. She was led toward the door, the sound of her sobs filling the silent courtroom. As the doors closed behind her, the gallery remained stunned, until slowly, someone started clapping. Then another, and another, until the room erupted in sustained applause. Judge Caprio raised his hand. "Order, please," he said, and the room quieted immediately. "I take no pleasure in sending a 19-year-old to jail," he continued, his tone firm but not cruel. But Miss Huntington needed a lesson no one else had taught her. Actions have consequences. Wealth does not exempt anyone from them, and in this courtroom, it never will. It had taken 31 minutes from the moment Sophia arrogantly declared, "My mom can buy you," to the moment she was led away in handcuffs. She spent 30 days in county jail, no special privileges, no private cell, no comfort. She shared a cell with 3 other women, ate cafeteria food, wore prison-issued clothes, and for the first time, her family name meant absolutely nothing. Her mother, Veronica Huntington, called, threatened lawsuits, tried to bend the system, but Judge Caprio's ruling stood firm. Contempt of court is contempt of court, regardless of who your mother is. 6 months after her release, Sophia completed her 300 hours of mandated community service with Providence Emergency Medical Services. She answered emergency calls, coordinated ambulances, and witnessed the human cost of reckless behavior firsthand. She saw pain, fear, and tragedy that she had previously been insulated from. One call in particular stayed with her. A 7-year-old girl had been hit by a car speeding 85 in a 35 miles per hour zone. The child had died. Sophia went home that night unable to stop crying, finally understanding the consequences of careless actions, a lesson no amount of money could have taught her. 1 year later, Sophia returned to Judge Caprio's courtroom, not as a spoiled, entitled teenager, but as a changed young woman. Simple clothes, natural hair, no designer labels. Her eyes held humility, reflection, and remorse. "Your Honor," she said, her voice shaking but sincere, "I wanted to thank you. You did what no one else ever did, you held me accountable. You showed me that money doesn't make me special. That I'm not above consequences. That the law applies to everyone." She paused, fighting back tears. "I spent 30 days in jail next to women who were desperate, who had made mistakes out of necessity, not privilege. And I was there because I thought I could buy my way out. I learned that my privilege was poisonous, that I needed to change everything about who I was. I've completed my community service, and I continue to volunteer with EMS. I talk to high school students about reckless driving. I show them my mug shot. I tell them about jail. I'm not proud of who I was, but I'm working to become better." Judge Caprio nodded, a slight smile on his face. "That's good, Miss Huntington. Very good." She added, "My mom and I aren't speaking much. She thinks it was excessive, but Your Honor, it wasn't. It was exactly what I needed. Thank you for seeing past the money and treating me like everyone else." Judge Caprio kept Sophia's mugshot on his desk, not as a mark of shame, but as a reminder that sometimes the kindest action a judge can take is to refuse to bend. That wealth does not grant immunity. That a single, unguarded statement, "My mom can buy you," can be answered only one way, with the unwavering force of justice.